Hey everybody, what's up? And welcome in to Best on the Board here at the Athletic. Thursday, October 28th. NFL Week 8 kicks off tonight between the Packers and the Cardinals. We've also got college football Week 9 underway. Michael Beller and Dan Santaramita here to talk you through that Packers-Cardinals game and some of the games we like on the Week 9 college football slate as well. Dan, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good, and I'm ready for more Beller player prop specials. Guy, I can't even say that one. But it's like my favorite part of the show. You come on and pick some player props. I know that you're on a bit of a cold streak, but I keep the faith in the player props. They're fun bets.
I appreciate that. You said it for me. That was last week was the second week in a row in which I had a receiver going over 5.5 catches, and he stuck ever so stubbornly on 5 catches. So hopefully we break the streak this week. Good week for you last week. You went 2-1 to run your season record to 9-10. I unfortunately had a really ugly week, 0-3. So I'm at 5-11 for these Thursday night shows. Hopefully we turn things around on this episode. You'll notice it's just me and Dan on this episode. Ari Wasserman rejoining us next week. We are very excited for him to come back. He's getting his feet back in the water. He's got a couple of picks for us this week. We'll talk about those at the end of the show. Let's start with our picks, though, Dan. Let's go to your first pick of the day. You're going to take us to the college world to kick things off.
Yeah, so I'm taking a couple dogs this week. So this is the one where I'm a little bit I don't know. I know a lot of people like taking dogs, and taking points is great. But this one is like, all right, well, let's see. Dipping my toe into the Pac-12, Washington State plus 15.5 at Arizona State. Now this is one Pac-12 always a little unpredictable, but I think this is too many points to give a team like Washington State. Our model at the Athletic, Austin Mock, has it at 12.4. And I think that's a big difference. 3 points is always a solid edge. And when you're talking into that 3-score range, which I guess you can call 15.5, it's more than 2 touchdowns at least. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a number where it's just a little too big. Arizona State's been a bit inconsistent. They do have a good offense, but Washington State's been competitive. Every game that they've either won or lost, they were in every game except for USC that blew them out. So they've been close against everybody. I don't think Arizona State's miles better than anyone else they've played. So I like taking the points here.
Yeah, is there anything that we've seen from Arizona State in their recent? I mean, right, they have surged to the top of the Pac-12, or surged to a position in the Pac-12 where I don't think many people expected them to be at the start of the season. So anything that we've seen from them, maybe going back a month or so, that has you concerned about them being able to cover this number?
Well, Arizona State's offense is explosive, and that's kind of thing. If they get enough big plays, then you're in trouble. I think their defense is relatively weak, where Washington State should be able to hang. But realistically, I just think Washington State should be able to stay within 2 touchdowns. I think it's just too big of a number to expect a blowout in this one.
Yeah, definitely like when it crosses over that 3-score threshold. So feeling comfortable about that. For what it's worth, 15.5 last night when you and I were first talking about our pick, 16.5 this morning. So moving in that direction, you'll take that point for sure. I'm going to go to the NFL game on Thursday night, Packers and Cardinals. And I'm going to take the Packers plus 6.5. And here's the reason why, Dan. We know Davante Adams, Allen Lazard, both going to miss this game for the Packers. They're on the COVID-19 list. Before that news came out, and it was really before the Adams news came out, this was Cardinals -3. And that felt totally fair for these two teams. Cardinals at home, 7-0. Packers 6-1. Cardinals -3. Let's move on with our lives. 3.5 points is a big, big move. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, Davante Adams isn't a major part of what Green Bay does, and not just what he does. It's not just the matter of, we throw the ball to Davante 10 times a game, so we'll just spread those targets out. As long as we turn those 10 targets into 120 yards and a touchdown, we're good. No. That's not how this works. Davante Adams has a gravity to him that opens up so much of what Green Bay wants to do in other places. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this line shouldn't have moved at all with the Packers playing without Davante Adams. But 3.5 is a big number. It's a big movement for one player, for a wide receiver, no matter how good he is. And for my money, Davante Adams is the best receiver in the NFL. And then I went back and looked over the last couple of seasons. Davante Adams has missed 6 games the last 2 years. Those are also the 2 years before this one, during which Matt LaFleur has been the coach of the Green Bay Packers. Packers are 5-1 against the spread in those 6 games, 2-0 as underdogs. In both of those games in which they were underdogs, they won outright. Last year, they did it against the Saints. They scored 37 points in that game. It was on the road. They were 3.5-point underdogs. They go in, roll up 37. Aaron Rodgers has a big game. Saints ended the year last year, the 7th-ranked defense by EPA. So it wasn't like they were rolling over some bad defense either. And they just did it without Adams. Then you go back to 2019, 3.5-point underdogs in a road game against Dallas. They win 34-24. It was Aaron Jones at the center of things that game, scoring 4 touchdowns. So Matt LaFleur doesn't want to play without Davante Adams. Who would want to play without Davante Adams? But he's shown us he can scheme up an offense that is still very successful without Davante Adams. So I just come back to 6.5 being way too much and 3.5 being too big a move for this game without Adams. That's why I'm going to go ahead and back the Packers getting the 6.5.
I actually like that thought process of 3 points for a receiver being too many. I also, we both live in Chicago. We're very familiar with Aaron Rodgers looking very good. You don't have to do too much to convince me to bet on an Aaron Rodgers team. So.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to want to get behind for sure. And again, I love the Cardinals. This is like 2 of my favorite teams to bet on, the Packers and the Cardinals. So I don't want to make the anti-Cardinals argument, and I don't think I'm really making that. I just think that the Packers can do it without Adams, and 3.5 is a big move for any sort of receiver to be making here. So that's why I just think this one a little bit too high. Give me the Packers plus 6.5 tonight against the Cardinals. And if you're here with us on Best on the Board, you know what the deal is here. Just a little bit more fun with some skin in the game. Our partners over at BetMGM, they can help you do just that. Get that skin in the game and win a little bit. They're going to make things a little bit easier on you when you first walk in the door. You can bet $10 and win $200. Any bet 10, win $200. Plus, get a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic. All you got to do is go to betmgm.com/TABest. Use the promo code TABest when you sign up, and you're going to get that offer from the king of sportsbooks. Again, it is bet $10, win $200. Any bet you want, bet 10, win $200. Plus, a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic at betmgm.com/TABest. Use the promo code TABest. This is a new customer offer at BetMGM. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Dan, let's go back to the well here. You've got one more college pick for us. I'm going to give us one more pick on Packers and Cardinals. Bring us home, buddy. Bring us back to the heartland, back to the Big Ten. What do you got for us in the Big Ten slate this weekend?
Yeah, I like Purdue getting some points at Nebraska. They're getting 7.5, and I just don't trust Nebraska to give more than a touchdown. Basically what it comes down to. This is a team, we talked about in the early weeks of the season. They find ways to lose close games. They had a streak in the middle of the season where they were playing out of conference and they looked better after the Illinois loss. They played Oklahoma close. They probably should have beat Michigan State. They are just not good in close games. This is a trend. You can go point to the coaching staff or whatever it may be. So they're an improved team from week 1, but then they also laid a total egg against Minnesota, although Purdue coming off probably their worst showing of the year last week against Wisconsin, which caught you out. They totally got crushed 30-13.
Knew it was a trap. It couldn't help but walk right into it.
Yeah. So, and look, Wisconsin, they got an interesting game against Iowa, and not to deviate too far, but the total is the lowest of the week. It's a stupid low total for college. Wisconsin is the second best defense in the country in yards allowed to Georgia. So their offense, yes, it's a mess. So is Iowa's. That's a weird one. But Purdue getting blown out by Wisconsin, maybe not as bad as people think because Wisconsin has no offense. Their defense is elite. Nebraska, a similar mold of a team, but not as extreme. And I just don't trust them in close games. I just think it's too many points. David Bell's great. Purdue's been close in every game except Notre Dame and then Wisconsin. I don't think Nebraska is in that tier of team. Give me the points.
Since you bring up Wisconsin, let me just go ahead and throw this out there. We do have a couple of picks from our buddy Ari, and he mentioned to me that he kind of liked Wisconsin when he was going through his thought process. Said he kind of liked Wisconsin, and his exact words were, "I actually like Wisconsin -3, but I'm done betting on that fucking team." And so I understand the sentiment for sure there. Purdue, up and down, right? They had the huge high beating Iowa, then they come crashing back to earth with Wisconsin. How do you feel about them, just purely Purdue going into this game? I know you like the points, and 7.5 is a lot to ask Nebraska to cover, but what are just the feelings on Purdue and only Purdue going into this one after the roller coaster they've been on the last couple of weeks?
Well, I'll put it this way. When you picked Purdue last week and you thought the line was bad, I'm going, I wouldn't want to be the one betting on Purdue putting 2 good games in a row. So this is kind of, Purdue's in that tier of team where it's like, yeah, they have some talent. Like I said, David Bell, I think, is an excellent receiver. We're going to be talking about him on Sundays very shortly. But yeah, Purdue, they don't have enough talent to be week to week good. And I think Iowa, when they played them, you play a team with a totally broken offense. It's a very different game. And Nebraska, not that much better on offense than that. So I think this is a more favorable matchup for Purdue. I think they're in that mid-tier of Big Ten teams where 1 week it could be this, 1 week it could be that, which, I mean, it sounds a lot similar to the Washington State, Arizona State pick, where those teams, net conference, it's all over the place. I just think Purdue has enough to hang here, and I expect the inconsistency that with what they did last week maybe didn't shock me.
Yeah. So it's the last way we go here with Purdue getting the +7.5 at Nebraska. For my second pick, going back to that game, and you got it, Dan. Player prop time. Aaron Jones over 101.5 rushing plus receiving yards. He's going to have to be a huge part of what Green Bay does offensively. That's no secret. Without Devontae Adams, without Allen Lazard, he's going to be a major part of what this team does offensively. It's just how things are going to have to roll for them. And we can look back at some of the recent history of the Packers playing without Devontae Adams and see Aaron Jones having some very strong games. I mentioned last year the 2 games that Devontae Adams missed. In those 2 games, he surpassed this number one time, went over it pretty comfortably in that one, 111 yards in that one. The second one, the one where he didn't quite get there, he didn't miss it by much, and it was that Saints game that I mentioned earlier that he did not quite get there. Again, that was a game that was totally dominated by Aaron Rodgers. So you can totally excuse him for that. Then you go back to the season before, in which Devontae Adams missed 4 games for the Packers. Aaron Jones, went over this mark 3 out of those 4 games. So this feels like a game where we could get him even more involved than he already has been. And it really comes down to what he does in the passing game. And I just think they're going to have to lean on him so much without Devontae Adams, without Allen Lazard. And you look back just over the recent weeks, 5 targets last week, 4 before that, 5 before that, 4 before that. He already has a very meaningful role in the Packers passing game. I think without Adams, without Lazard, we're probably looking more at like 6, 7, 8 targets for Aaron Jones in this game. And he's clearly going to be, along with Aaron Rodgers, the engine of this offense. So 101.5, I think Aaron Jones can surpass that number. I like it a little bit better than just trying to play the rushing or receiving game, because I know he's going to have a big part of the offense. Maybe Arizona can slow him down as a rusher. Maybe they can slow him down as a receiver. I don't want to make that bet. I just know that they're going to put the ball in his hands, I would say 20 times in this game tonight. And I think with that, he goes over 101.5 total yards. So that's where I'm going to live with Aaron Jones. I did mention that Ari gave me a few picks, so let's just touch on the picks that Ari gave us for this show. We'll add them to the record. He's got Michigan State. This is a big game between Michigan and Michigan State this week. Both these teams undefeated. First time they've had a top 10 matchup in 60 years almost. Michigan State +4. That is what Ari is riding with. He takes the Spartans +4 against Michigan. He also likes Florida +14 against Georgia. I can take either one of those, Dan, and comment on what side you're on this one.
Well, I respect that he's going right for the big games. I mean, these are 2 of the 3 or 4 biggest games of the week. I'm dancing in the mud, finding some average Power 5 games, and he's like, give me the big boys. No, I actually think I would lean Georgia, but I know our computer model with Austin Mock, as I mentioned frequently, likes both these numbers, given a bit of an edge for both of the ones he has there. Florida, Georgia is super interesting to me because Georgia has just been a cover machine of late because their defense just doesn't give up touchdowns. I know Kentucky scraped out a cover on like a last play a couple weeks ago, and they were calling timeouts to score with 3 seconds left, and the betting world was going crazy. But this Georgia team is just such a blowout machine, and it's only 14. Now, the flip side to that is Florida has played close with everybody. Their 3 losses were by 7 or less. They played, I think, by 2 against Alabama. They've been in every game against really good teams. I don't like betting against Georgia anymore. They're just such a juggernaut. And yeah, neutral field rivalry game is a lot of reason to think Florida can stay within 14. They have an explosive offense, although we haven't seen anybody be explosive against Georgia's defense. So I think it might be too many points. We're starting to get to that point where the lines just keep creeping bigger and bigger, and this might be a little too far based on what we think Georgia is. And Florida probably should have won that Kentucky game. They had a blocked field goal return for a touchdown and some weird plays in that game that went against them. So they're probably a little undervalued in a lot of people's minds. I just wouldn't want to bet against Georgia. Good luck, Ari.
Good luck, Ari. We'll welcome you back to the show next week and talk about these two picks, the picks that we made and also the picks that we'll have for next week, because that is going to do it for this episode of Best on the Board. Thanks so much for being with us on this episode, whether it was YouTube or just the straight up podcast. We'll be back with you on this show tomorrow. Me and Casey Joyner taking a deeper look at the NFL slate for the weekend. For Dan, I am Michael Beller. We'll talk to y'all soon. Good luck tonight. Happy betting.